I'm Lisa Shepherd, and I've been studying the paranormal for the past 25 years. I'm a sucker for mysteries and the unexplained. After my grandmother left me a considerable inheritance, I was able to devote my attention to exploring the paranormal. Over the years, I built a research company whose major mission is to explore areas around the world where there has been documented paranormal activity. Some of the instances I've worked on were downright frightening, while others were just mysterious. My team members include Heather Hughes, a psychic medium, Stephanie Hill, a pagan priestess, and Joe Straka, a paranormal researcher. My team and I have considerable training in the paranormal, parapsychology, and exorcism, as well as qualifications in alternative healing services. As a result, not only do we study the paranormal, but we can also assist individuals in need of energy healing, exorcism and such. My website has many articles regarding our adventures. We occasionally seek advice from people who are specialists in other fields. But, for the most part, it is the four of us who go places together. Here, I'd want to share some of my experiences with the YouTube community. As a seasoned paranormal investigator, I've had my fair share of interesting encounters with the unexplained. One of those adventures took place in the small village of Prisap, Bosnia. Bosnia is a small country in southern Europe. Prisap is located 15 kilometers from town of Livno, a small city in the south of the country. Bosnia was uncharted territory for me. Until one day, someone sent me an email inviting me to come visit the village because of a haunted house. The sender identified himself as Marco. Marco stated that the haunted house has been vacant for decades. People who had briefly resided there claimed to have heard frightening noises, babies crying, and saw ghosts. According to folk legend, the house is to blame for the deaths of 2 persons 30 years ago. Also, the haunted house is said to be built on a cemetery. I've never traveled to Bosnia, so I wanted to go to the country as well as see the haunted house. Marco graciously offered to be my host. We set the dates for my trip after I explained that I needed at least one of my team members to accompany me. I decided to take Joe with me to Bosnia. Our first stop was in Sarajevo, the Bosnian capital. It is a lovely city of a few 100,000 people. Because of its rich religious and cultural past, Sarajevo has been dubbed Europe's Jerusalem. The city has so much to offer. This is why I took a vacation to Bosnia a year later just so that I could focus exclusively on enjoying the city. Anyway, Joe and I only spent one day in the capital. We drove to our destination, the village of Prisap, the next day. Our trip to the haunted house began with a 4-hour bus ride from Sarajevo to Livno. Marco was waiting for us at Livno's famed bus terminal. He spoke English and drove us to a neighboring cafe to have some dinner. He was chatty and kind. Marco insisted on paying for our meals and drinks. I recognized that this generous act was part of his native country's cultural norm. After exchanging pleasantries, and Joe and I describing what we do, Marco gave us a rundown of the haunted place and indicated that he, too, was interested in the paranormal. He showed us images he took of the property in question, which depict a ghostly figure peering out a window. I just don't have the right equipment and expertise to study this house further, he told us. I looked over the photos. At first sight, they appeared authentic. I've been taught to recognize manipulated images. On the surface, Marco's photographic evidence appeared genuine. The edges of items in the photos were not jagged or excessively smooth, the shadows were realistic, and the perspective was good. Of course, determining the authenticity of a photograph or a video takes a more extensive inspection. But I wasn't here for the photos. After a while of chatting, we were all quite excited to go to Prisap. Marco drove us to the village. The rocky ride to the village took around 20 minutes. It was getting dark, and our path to Prisap was not well illuminated. We arrived to the village around 8 in the evening. Marco showed us the haunted home in passing. The house was a typical two-story Bosnian house with a balcony. It had a devastated facade and was located on the land next to the road that led into the village. Above the door leading to the balcony, I saw a big crucifix. The grass around it was overgrown, probably about 3 feet high. There were red, iron entrance door. The boards that once covered the windows were broken. The house definitely gave me a spooky vibe. Marco's residence was just a short distance away. It was a single-family residence with a white exterior and a red roof. It was fenced in and had a tiny apple tree in front of it. Marco said it was his parents' home, but they died several years ago. He lived alone. There were 2 bedrooms in the house. Marco insisted that Joe and I each take a bedroom and added, "I'm going to sleep on the couch in the living room." So I went to one of the bedrooms. The room featured a queen-sized bed, a window, a nightstand, and a dresser. A crucifix was nailed to the wall above the bed. After I had finished unpacking my belongings, I went to sleep. I couldn't wait to see what Joe and I would discover in the next couple of weeks. The next morning, after breakfast, Joe and I walked to the haunted home. The village was strangely quiet. Locals who noticed us standing near the cursed building looked at us with mistrust, as if they knew why we were there. In the daylight, I could see that the abandoned house was an old, decaying structure with a disintegrating exterior. The air around it seemed thick with dread, as if something horrible lurked in the shadows. As an empath, I was struck by a sense of foreboding right away. The air was freezing cold, and seemed to be alive with malicious force. I could hear faint and haunting whispering, as if the walls were alive with the anguished souls of those who had gone before. The house had clearly not been occupied in quite some time. There was a lot of dust on the remaining furnishings. Cobwebs adorned the corners of the rooms, and I swear I saw a rat whizzing by us at one point. After looking around the house, Joe and I decided to begin our investigation after dusk. We were armed with flashlights, ghost box audio recorders, night vision cameras, batteries, walkie-talkies, EMF detectors, bottled water, and snacks. Marco provided us holy water for protection, but I opted against using it so early in our study. Reason being that I wasn't sure what I needed to be protected against. The first night in the haunted house was relatively uneventful. Our technology identified no paranormal activity, and only a stray dog produced some ruckus around 2 in the morning. The nights that followed, though, were more exciting. Strange things began to happen. For example, equipment broke down or vanished, as if something or someone was attempting to undermine our efforts. This kind of behavior usually indicated that we were dealing with a poltergeist. However, the paranormal activity became more intense the longer we stayed in the house. Even though we were alone in the house, we heard footsteps and doors slamming shut. Children screaming and weeping were deafening. Thumping sounds could be heard coming from the walls and floors. The spirits seemed to be attempting to speak with us, advising us to leave before it was too late. But we were determined to find out what was going on. Joe and I did many spirit box sessions and were able to record the odd sounds of what appeared to be baby cries and spooky whispers of death and darkness. We also saw strange apparitions and shadows moving around and felt touched by unseen forces. I felt as if I were being suffocated by an unseen entity at one point, and the darkness seemed to be closing in on me. I knew we had to leave, but I couldn't escape the notion that there was more to learn. On the 11th night, Joe and I discovered a hidden room after strolling around the house with cameras and flashlights in hand. It was isolated from the rest of the house. Its secret entrance was hidden behind a huge mirror. We believed it was a groundbreaking find and started to look inside the hidden area. A surge of frigid air came towards us as we opened the door. The air had a distinct odor. Cold and foul air frequently suggested the presence of an angry, negative entity. The room was small. There were no windows in the room. Just a twin-size bed, a modest nightstand, and an antique lamp. On the nightstand was also a pretty dusty notebook. "I think this is a diary," Joe said. When we opened the notebook, all we saw was a lot of writing, plant drawings, and some type of numerical measurements. I suggested it could be a cooking book. "Only one way to find out," Joe remarked. He suggested that we take it to Marco and have him translate it for us. I agreed. The following morning, we saw Marco and showed him the notebook. He took it cautiously. The more he read it, the paler he became. Marco explained that the diary belonged to one of the former owners of the house who had been accused of practicing black magic. Some of the entries in the diary described dark rituals and special spells for summoning demons. I didn't like what I was hearing. Demonic spirits are the most difficult to deal with in my field of business. I've had my fair share of demonic attacks over the years, and fighting the demons requires a lot of energy, expertise, and manpower. We returned to the haunted house on the 13th night to finish our inquiry. Joe and I could hear the evil voices becoming louder and more frantic as the air grew colder. I knew we needed to get out of there before it was too late. Stephanie and Heather would have been great company. But, to be honest, I didn't expect this trip to be as terrifying as Marco made it out to be. We gathered our equipment, double-checked that all evidence was recorded and properly filed, and said our goodbyes to this scary, ancient Bosnian house. I could feel the weight of the spirits lifting as we made our way out of the home, and the air became lighter. We made one final stop at Livno's clerk treasury for property archives. After reading through lots of documents, we confirmed the eerie house was built atop a hundreds-year-old cemetery. Anyone who has ever been inside the house will never forget its darkness. Now, as I sit down to write my report, I can't help but feel uneasy. The memories of that haunted Prisap house still bothers me, and I know that the evil energy will never depart it, nor will the spirits of the disturbed cemetery ever fully be at peace.
After spending 2 weeks in the Bosnian village, in the haunted house, Lisa and Joe were able to capture some unusual phenomena on camera and in audio format. From ghostly footsteps to terrifying voices, their investigation revealed that the house was indeed haunted by some sort of supernatural presence. However, the exact nature of this presence remains a mystery. Was it the spirits of the people from the ancient cemetery, or perhaps something more sinister? Only further investigation can reveal the true identity of this ghostly specter. If you enjoyed this story and want to see more like it, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. We will publish more stories from Lisa Shepherd's paranormal investigations. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Until next time, stay well. Thank you for your support.